We all know by now that the legends over at Hello Games add multiple free content updates a year for No Man's Sky, and so far 2024 hasn't been any different. We've already seen the Omega and the Orbital updates, which include brand new revamped space stations, and finally, ship customization, or shipbuilding, which is probably more accurate. But there is still a bunch of potential updates we could see in the future that would take No Man's Sky to the next level. So, let's get stuck in and have a look. First up, let's talk about a water-based expansion, because this is an area of No Man's Sky which hasn't really changed for a number of years. In its current state, we can dive under the ocean, swim around, and maybe find a couple of reasonably valuable resources, maybe a sunken building, and if we're lucky or know how to find them, a crashed ship. And have you noticed the variety of underwater environments, no matter what planet type you're on, is minimal at best. And it's one of the main reasons I don't feel the need to explore underwater. And on top of that, it's actually incredibly rare to find a body of water in No Man's Sky that is deeper than 100 units. And considering some planets are mostly covered in oceans, that seems a tad odd. I'd like to see deeper oceans because at the moment, even if you're low on oxygen, you can easily swim back up to the surface before you die, which effectively makes the Nautilus submarine redundant. But deeper oceans would also encourage exploration, and with it, we could stumble upon brand new points of interest. Deeper down, how about sea monsters? Hell, we could even have water-based pirates in the game, and with it, new water-based exocraft like a speedboat. Who doesn't love speedboats? Let's face it, the Nautilus is a little bit pathetic, innit? And another thing I believe needs expanding is the underwater base building, because it's pretty limited in its current form as well. But more on base building in just a couple of minutes. And before we get onto that, let's head on back up to the surface and talk about biomes. In 2020, Hello Games released the Origins update, which introduced a more varied universe, and it was well received, and rightly so, because it was a massive upgrade to the biome and flora variety that was desperately needed at the time. And I believe it's now time we had this sort of update again. You know, sort of like an Origins Part 2 kind of thing, which would add even more varied biomes and plant life into the mix. Let's face it, if you've been playing No Man's Sky for long enough, any planet you land on these days will look familiar in some degree or another, be it either the landscape, the colour of the planet, the weird looking plants on it you can find on it. A lot of the groundwork at the moment for more varied biomes was done in Origins, and building on top of that would be less of a challenge than it was before that came out. So it's certainly something I could see happening, as come September, 4 years will have passed since the last biome enhancements were done. And along with that, I'd also like to see, perhaps as part of the same update, more aggressive creatures. Because let's face it, 90%, hell, perhaps even 95% of the creatures you ever encounter on your explorations don't pose a threat of any description. When you think about how many radioactive or scorching or frozen or toxic planets there are in the game, why are there hardly any aggressive creatures to come out of those environments? The only real worry when you go down to some planets are Sentinels. You never think, oh damn, that dino looking thing is out to kill me. No, it just wanders around doing feck all. You know, how about a bit more of a challenge when it comes to creatures? One aspect of No Man's Sky that I really enjoy and sometimes go back to it just for the fun of it are the derelict freighters. I like the incredibly hostile and spooky environments, but what I would like to see would be a similar sort of thing on a planet's surface. The current abandoned outposts on a planet are a bit naff and boring and small with not much going on. I'd love to see larger abandoned buildings or outposts with new creatures in there out to kill us, but also new rewards if we make it to the centre of them alive. I don't think an update like this would be particularly difficult because, well, they've done something similar in the past with derelict freighters. It just makes exploring on a planet a bit more varied and perhaps a bit more rewarding if they were to add something like this in. And speaking of more variety of points of interest on the planet's surface, how about a further expansion to Sentinels? Perhaps a brand new large Sentinel outpost with, I don't know, things like automatic defense turrets, brand new Sentinels we can encounter, and again, brand new Sentinel upgrades as rewards for clearing out the outpost. These rewards could be used on a vast array of the new Sentinel starships which we can acquire, which, by the way, was an awesome addition to No Man's Sky. I just feel the Sentinels lack a bit of a challenge. Sure, they added in new Sentinels last year and a few pesky Sentinels that can fix the other ones up when you're trying to destroy them, but it still doesn't pose much of a challenge whatsoever, even in survival mode. Appears to be a bit of a theme in these last couple of points so far, don't there? More challenges, please, Sean. One feature of No Man's Sky that I don't tend to do much of, mainly because they're a little repetitive, boring, and again don't pose much of a challenge, are the space station missions. Half the time when you go to a mission board, there are missions like collect this item, deliver this item, kill some sentinels, take a photo on a hot planet, scan some plants, etc. etc. These missions don't really appeal to me, like at all, because they're easy and boring. What I'd really like to see in the future updates are more varied missions, perhaps with multiple stages to them. Like mini expeditions, you could suggest, because right now, it's a feature that I don't really use. What do you think? Would you guys like more challenging and varied space station or Nexus missions for that matter? Let me know in the comments section below. I've seen a lot of chatter about this next one in the comment section of some of my previous videos, and in some cases on Reddit, and that is a PvP update for No Man's Sky. Now for me, I don't play No Man's Sky for PvP, nor do I think it actually needs PvP. If I wanted that, I'd go and play something else like Halo, Call of Duty, or a racing game of some description. But I can see the appeal to some players. Perhaps a new game mode could be introduced in No Man's Sky which allows players to play against one another, whether that be in freighter battles, racing exocraft on custom built tracks, or on planet fighting for whatever reason. It doesn't really appeal to me, but it does to a lot of players. What would be more appealing to me though is better co-op in No Man's Sky. Right now we can do expeditions and Nexus missions, but they don't actually require any other player really, because you can do everything in it by yourself. I would like to see specific missions that do actually require a second or third or even fourth player. Perhaps those new Sentinel outposts or the on-planet abandoned outposts with major threats lurking inside would benefit greatly from co-op mode. What do you guys think? So, onto base building, which is probably one of my favourite features in No Man's Sky. I love going and checking out other players' creations, and it's something I'd love an expansion to. I'm not just talking about new base building parts, though they would certainly be a welcomed addition, especially underwater base building parts, as I already mentioned. But no, I'm thinking bigger. I'm talking about dedicated low orbital base building instead of having to use the current botched method of placing a landing pad in mid-air. I'm also talking beyond low orbital bases, like actual space outposts which we can build, in space. Imagine being able to build and customize something like that and having NPCs fly in, perhaps create new trade routes, make yourself loads of money, and so on. Also maybe defend it from pirates. It would be a freaking awesome update. In fact, even just having NPCs visiting your bases that already exist would be a cool, smaller addition. I've seen and showcased so many amazing bases over the years, and whilst they do look damn good, they do feel a bit empty because NPCs never visit them, so I'd like to see that added as well. Along with those larger content updates, some smaller ones would be nice, which obviously include bug fixes, stuff like rendering enhancements and other refinements. But one small thing I'd like to see, and perhaps it may come true because we can start expeditions from the anomaly now, is not having a time limit on expeditions. There are a few I never completed because either life got in the way or I was just busy enjoying other games at the time, so I'd love to play a couple of them through to get those rewards. Personally, I really don't see why they're on a time limit in the first place. It doesn't really make much sense. Perhaps it's because it gets players back to the game for some time, who knows. But I'd like to start any expedition at any time. Right, there is of course one potential giant elephant in the room which will limit the size and perhaps frequency of future No Man's Sky content updates, and that is Light No Fire. Because as you'd probably expect, the focus of Hello Games will eventually shift to it when it is nearing release date to make sure that it's ready to go. And that's fine, No Man's Sky will not continue getting content updates as large as it has been doing forever, so we need to be ready for when they start to slow down, which I reckon will be in the very near future. But when Light No Fire does get released, a boatload of people will likely move from playing No Man's Sky to playing Light No Fire, myself included, assuming it's good. So players need to be ready for it. But that's not to say No Man's Sky will stop getting updates. Sean Murray did say 2024 would be a big year for the game, and so far it's been good. But it's wise to just keep your expectations in check, people. Updates will start getting smaller, or they will start getting less often. Anyhow, I've gone over a few updates I would love to see added into No Man's Sky in this video. Whether or not they become reality is a different question entirely. But now I'd love to hear from you guys. Do you like any of my suggestions? Do you have any suggestions that I haven't covered in this video? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you are still here, it would be totally awesome if you could support my channel by hitting those like and subscribe buttons. You can now become a channel member as well, and as always, thank you for watching this video, and I will catch you in the next one.